And welcome back, folks, to Hashtag AskGSM here today. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, back with another all-new, jam-packed edition of Hashtag AskGSM. To send in your questions, tweet me on the Twitter at WrestleRant with the Hashtag AskGSM. Find me on the Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself. Or leave a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So we're going to have to cut it short here again today at 45 minutes. I have class at 10:45. I record these at 10 o'clock in the morning every Monday. But that will stop in 2 weeks. I have class again, of course, next Monday. Actually, I don't think I do. Or I do. The week after that, I don't, though. I'm still here on campus. I have exams and shit, but I don't think I have anything that Monday. So I probably can record for the full hour on Monday, May 9th. And beyond that, there's no limits. I'll be going the full hour, not having to rush through your questions as I have, I've been forced to do, of course, these past couple of months, unfortunately, due to class. But starting on my summer break in a couple weeks, I'll be able to go through your questions in depth, fully, and I can't wait for that because I hate having to rush through your great questions, which we have almost 3 pages worth of here today. So without further ado, without wasting any more time, first question comes from Blue Eyed Disorder, my brother Jason. You can check out his channel, Blue Eyed Disorder. He answers fan questions, talks about a lot of great stuff on his channel, so be sure to check that out. Tourette's and along those lines, and a lot of other great content too. So just a quick shout out to Jason. He's a great dude. Be sure to subscribe and check him out. But anyway, his question was, do you think that the WWE would ever form the Bullet Club? I don't think so, not in its current form. I don't think they would ever call the Bullet Club the Bullet Club. Maybe if they signed more members, which I know was rumored a couple months ago after Styles and Gallows and Anderson came over. I don't think, Rocky Romero, I think might have been offered a contract. Bad Luck Fale, maybe I don't really watch New Japan, so I don't know any of the undercard members. Cody Hall. A lot of those guys I don't see coming over right now, if ever. But that being said, I don't think they would ever call, if and when Styles, Gallows, and Anderson join them, maybe not in the immediate future, but down the line, or even with Balor, they're not going to call them the Bullet Club. That's a New Japan trademark, and they don't need to. They can create their own little stable, and WWE wouldn't want to anyway. They like to make their own creations, and then, they don't like to take from other companies. I know the NWO was probably the only exception, and even that they fucked up back in 2002. So, no, I don't think they would ever, form the Bullet Club in its original form in New Japan, but they might take, bits and pieces, like I said, Styles, Gallows, and Anderson, and create their own faction of some sort. Jose K, also from YouTube, when Luke Harper returns, will he return as a face, or will they do something sort of like a Luke versus Bray kind of feud? I imagine it will be as a face. I know he was gone during the time they turned face after WrestleMania. I could see a Luke versus Bray Wyatt feud down the line. That would be pretty fucking cool. Not right when he gets back, though. Maybe he breaks out as a heel down the line and Bray Wyatt as a babyface. That could be a really, really good feud. But when he returns, hopefully which is sooner rather than later, I've heard no timetable on his return, or Bray Wyatt's for that matter. I think Harper's is more set in stone in a couple months, like 6 to 8 weeks or 3 to 6 months or something like that. Bray Wyatt's is really still up in the air, unfortunately. But when he comes back, I assume he will be sticking with the Wyatt family. Are there any finishers by legends or from the past that you feel that nobody should ever use again? And are there any finishers that you feel should eventually return, like the stunner, rock bottom, leg drop, RKO, etc., because they feel so memorable to one wrestler that I don't know if they can ever be used again? I don't think so. I mean, of course, Orton took the the cutter, the diamond cutter from Diamond Dallas Page, but he made it his own, though. He jumps up in the air. His own agility kind of makes them move his own. So it's the RKO. It's not really the diamond cutter, despite the extreme similarities between the two moves. I don't ever really see the need. I mean, if anyone ever hits a stunner, like I know, what's his name? The dude from Lucha Underground, the Mac. He hits a stunner as the finisher, but they do it as kind of like an homage to Stone Cold. He doesn't really use it as his own. Same thing with a rock bottom. I can't really say there's any moves I want to see return as finishers from the past. The only move I can really say that I don't want to see used again, other than like the stunner and the rock bottom, because they're kind of attached to that wrestler, like you said. The leg drop, which you mentioned. I was going to put that down, and then I saw that you mentioned it. I was like, that's perfect. Just because, one, that would never finish someone off in 2016. It just looks... I mean, back then I could see it, but in 2016, if that was to finish somebody off, it would just look stupid. But at the same time, it's attached to the Hulk Hogan, but also at the same time, too, look how much damage it did to Hogan's back. I mean, landing on your ass, how many times a day, how many times a year, that kind of thing takes its toll on you, and it's certainly taken its toll on Hulk Hogan, so that's a move that I would never want to see return, just because, not only because it's not realistic in 2016, but it does damage to the body, more so than any other finisher I believe in existence in the last 30 years. Hogan has had, fucking 8 back surgeries and shit. And he said before, if he can go back in time, he would change up the finisher and do like a clothesline or something because he would rather not have to deal with the pain. The first KFC from YouTube, how much potential does No Way Jose have? I love the gimmick. That clip went up here on the channel last week from WWE EC Radio with us talking about it. I think it's a fun little gimmick. It's very Adam Rose, Disco Inferno, Fandango-esque. But the issue with all those characters is that they never really fleshed them out to the point where they really had any motivation. If they can give No Way Jose a motivation, allow him to, progress his in-ring skills. Nothing he did wrestling-wise last week made me think, jumped out at me like, oh, wow, the guy's a great wrestler. Even Fandango was a better wrestler than people gave him credit for. And even that gimmick didn't really work out because they never really went beyond the first dimension of the character. It's a very one-dimensional character. So hopefully, I'm not going to say it has the potential to take NXT by storm, but it's a fun gimmick for what it is. It's probably going to get tiresome, sooner rather than later. But they have to give him direction, and they have to give him motivation and flesh out the character more. If they just have the party shit and do all that stuff, whatever, blah blah blah, when he comes out, and they just do that forever, and they don't really get beyond the first stage, it's going to tire out very quickly. What's next for Samoa Joe? Well, he's the NXT champion. I assume you sent that in. I know you sent in these questions either the night of NXT or after NXT, because I remember I was at the show when I got the notification that you sent in these questions, Frank, or the first KFC. So it's funny, you might have sent these in like before he won the title that night, and I think that might have been the case, because I don't know why else you would have asked that, so, because he's the NXT champion now. He won the belt literally that night. But, I'll talk about what's next for him in terms of first feud as champion and whatever, but, he's fucking NXT champion. That's what's next for him now. When, if ever, should Baron Corbin become a main eventer? I think he can be. I think in time, as long as they don't rush it and they give him the push that he deserves and he needs. I think he can be the monster heel that WWE desperately needs right now. I've talked about that before in past articles here on the show. I think Baron Corbin has a lot of potential. He's not the greatest in-ring worker in the world, but in the ring with the right guy, he can have a good match, and his character is what attaches me the most to him. I think he has a great character. The whole indie killer thing I think is awesome. It's relatable. It's current. It's modern. And he's got a good look. He's a fucking freak of destruction, so I think he can go far with the right push, as long as they don't, get cold feet and think, oh, he's not getting over. We need to scrap the push immediately, which they have done before. I mean, look no further than Tyler Breeze, and he also feuded with Dolph Ziggler in his first feud in the main roster, so time will tell. Frankishire 15, should Chyna go into the WWE Hall of Fame next year? Should she? Yes, but I think at the same time they may hold off a lot like Macho Man. I know there were a lot of rumors like, oh, he died in 2011, he needs to go into 28, and he didn't. I felt like, they were obviously capitalizing. I think they actually wanted to. I think they wanted to induct him that year, but then, Lanny Poffo or the family said no. And it wasn't until just last year they inducted him, and they were probably going to do it at WrestleMania 30, but they already had another posthumous induction in Paul Bearer, so they waited until 31. I think there's a good chance she might get inducted. She's going to get inducted at some point. That's really no question about that. Will it be next year? Will it feel like they're capitalizing on her death? Otherwise, why wouldn't they have done it sooner? Because she wanted to be in the Hall of Fame, and they said no, so it would be a very bad message that they're sending. So I would hold off for another year or two. I mean, she's dead. It really doesn't matter at this point, right? I mean, it's not like, let's get her in before she dies. She's already dead. I hate to say it, but, they can wait another 2 more, 3 more years. Just because if they were going to do it, they should have done it this year or the year before. Despite in what bad shape she's in, she deserved to go in. I don't buy the whole porn excuse and all that bullshit, which I'm sure I probably talked about a year ago when Triple H revealed it on the podcast. That's why she's not in. Such bullshit. But other than that, yeah, I could see her going in next year. I would personally hold off just so that it doesn't look like they're capitalizing on her death, which is going to be the case anyway. But if they hold off until 2018 or 2019, maybe that might be a better case. We'll see. Anyway, Emmanuel A., also from YouTube, the Enzo and Cass versus American Alpha match from NXT had a very interesting atmosphere. The This Is Awesome chants before it even began were particularly interesting, seeing how it wasn't a high-stakes match. It didn't have stars from the past or any A-list main eventers, nor was it even in a hyped-up dream match. Do you think the match is a lot about the kind of place that NXT is? I think it says more about the booking than it does the kind of the atmosphere too, because the fans respect first-time ever matches and they loved both teams. I mean, you're looking at the 2 most over teams probably in NXT's history. I can't name another team that was as over as these 2 teams are. Enzo and Cass were the flag bearers, the standard bearers of NXT's tag team division since 2013. And American Alpha was the next best thing after they kind of took off and they won the tag team titles a few weeks ago. So, and even at that, I would say that, like I said, I think it's a better reflection of NXT's great booking, in that they have held these two teams, they have kept them away from each other, at least as opponents. They've teamed together a few times in the past year, but they have kept them away from each other as opponents in standard 2-on-2 action over the last 8 months. And look at the tag teams that NXT has. They do not have many tag teams. They have maybe 5 or 6. But in WWE, they would rush through those immediately. They would do, the tag team, let's do all the fresh matches, bada bing, bada boom, bada bing. You know what I mean? Just straight back-to-back weeks, and then we would be left with the same matches every single week. They fleshed it out. They dragged it out. We never saw Enzo and Cass versus American Alpha, and we finally got it on Wednesday night. I thought it was a really good match. So I think it says more about NXT and their resistance to, doing fresh matches every single week. They hold off until they mean something. And this match meant something, as Enzo and Cass are seemingly gone from NXT after this. And this might have been their final match before they go to the main roster. So I think it really said a lot about the NXT's booking and how they kind of hold off on matches until they finally mean something, which I think is great, which is why I love NXT. Chris M, moving on to the Facebook questions. And now, how long do you think Shane McMahon will be on Raw? To be determined. I could see him sticking around until SummerSlam. I mean, if at this point, if he's been on Raw for the last 3 weeks and tonight they're in Hartford, the McMahon's hometown, I would not be shocked if, obviously he's running Raw tonight, I'd imagine. If there are going to be any major changes, there won't be any major changes the week before pay-per-view. It's going to be next week. But yeah, I think it's going to be probably a couple more months. I would imagine until SummerSlam if they build to a Shane and Triple H match at that event, which someone else asked me about, which I'll get to momentarily. But I don't think they're going to get rid of him. I mean, I think if he lost at WrestleMania, they're still sticking him around. They're still keeping him around. There's obviously something to that it's not a short-term thing. So I imagine it's going to be a couple more months, which I think is great. It makes no sense storyline-wise because he lost at WrestleMania. But I'm happy to see him back, as Raw the last couple of weeks has been really, really good with Shane in charge in storyline. Colin G, also from Facebook, match you're most looking forward to at Payback. I would say Reigns and Styles. I think the build has been very, very good. Never before seen one-on-one between Reigns and Styles. They did have that brief clash. I mean, remember back in the Royal Rumble match, Roman Reigns was the first person that AJ Styles ever interacted with in a WWE ring. And obviously he was in a WWE ring a decade and a half ago on fucking Velocity or something. But you know what I mean. As a contracted WWE superstar, Styles first interacted with Roman Reigns in the Royal Rumble match. So there is something, and they have yet to mention that, and they probably won't. It's kind of a small detail that I just like to bring up. But the match itself could be really, really good, but there's a lot of possibilities here, too. Are Gallows and Anderson with Roman Reigns? Are they with AJ Styles? Are they with Finn Balor? Another source, another master, another leader? There's a lot of possibilities here, so I'm looking forward to this match, probably more so than anything else. But I think the rest of the card has a lot of potential to be very, very good. The rest of the card is filled out very well. The IC title match, Miz and Cesaro, should be good. Vaudevillains versus Enzo and Cass should be a pretty solid match. There's a lot of matches on this card I think could be very, very solid, and I'm looking forward to it. But specifically the main event. In its short history, what is the best match Payback has put out so far? There's been a lot of good ones. I put out an article last week for hitting about 5 Payback matches you should rewatch on the WWE Network, and I would say the best out of that bunch, and I pretty much put like the best of Payback. The best from that bunch, I would say, would be Shield and Evolution from the 2014 installment, which took place in the main event. The 6-man elimination, no-holds-barred tag team match I thought was fucking great. And the Shield's final match, too, before they broke up the next night on my birthday, which sucked. But, yeah, I would say that match. It was a really, really good match. Pretty long, but it told a great story. The Shield went over in a clean sweep in surprising fashion. So I would probably say that was the best match in Payback history. Punk and Jericho from 2013 was amazing, too, as well as the Fatal 4-Way from last year's installment between Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Randy Orton for the World Championship. Mitch G, has the Superkick lost some of its specialness from being used by so many people on today's roster? Yeah, I would argue that. I would definitely argue that. And I was shocked. I told RJ this as we were leaving NXT Lowell last week, but there was not one Superkick, I think, on the entire show, which is amazing to me. You go back to 2 weeks earlier when I was, again, also in Lowell for an indie show, I think Chaotic Wrestling. At least 5 super kicks in every single fucking match. I mean, I love the super kick. It's I think it is my number one favorite finisher of all time. But it's done so much. It's lost its meaning a lot ever since Shawn Michaels retired. They gave it to the Usos, and they gave it to Dolph Ziggler, and they give it to pretty much everybody. And they use that as a regular move when people kick out. I mean, I know the Young Bucks, that's kind of their shtick, but with the Usos, it just gets annoying. It's same with Dolph Ziggler. And now everyone's doing it. So it definitely does not mean as much as it once did. I still love the move, but yeah, just on a side note, I was shocked. I don't think we saw one super kick the entire night in NXT LOL, which was amazing. So they really know their role, and they kind of keep those matches, they kind of keep those moves special as opposed to overdoing them, much like the main roster. Push, repackage, and release. Matt Hardy, Gail Kim, and Drew Galloway. This was a hard one. I would push Drew Galloway just because I feel like he has the most potential, and he's kind of like the future. He's still pretty young, and he's also the current TNA World Champion, so I would push him. Repackage. I mean, this is hard because I love Matt Hardy, but at the same time, I feel like despite how right now I feel like he's doing the best work that he's done in years and years and years, you can't really get rid of Gail Kim. Otherwise, the Knockouts division is in the shitter. I mean, they just got rid of Velvet Sky. I mean, she's been a cornerstone of the Knockouts division for years, but she's also, again, not really that good. You take Gail Kim out of the equation, there really is no Knockouts division. They have Maria, but she's not really a wrestler. They have Jade, who's really, really good, but she's not quite there yet in terms of her character and getting over as a top heel. So I would repackage Kim and get rid of Matt Hardy just because I feel like TNA can still survive without Matt Hardy. Without Gail Kim, the Knockouts division is pretty much non-existent. Me being an animal lover, is it wrong to hate Brock Lesnar simply because he hunts one of my favorite animals despite a massive majority of wrestling fans loving him? I wouldn't say that's wrong at all. I mean, you may hate Brock Lesnar the person. I don't know if that really translates to you booing him because you hate him as a character. I think people love him because he's a great... I mean, I love Brock Lesnar the person and the wrestler just because as a wrestler is a fucking beast. And as a person, he doesn't give two fucks. Brock Lesnar does not care at all. That's why I love Brock Lesnar. But you're not wrong to dislike him because of something that he does in his personal life. I don't know if that, again, that translates to you booing him in the ring because you don't like who he is as a person. That's fine too, I guess. But no, you're not wrong for disliking him for that reason. And their final question here, would it be cool if Anderson and Gallows came out to Massacre since it was Gallows' old theme song for nostalgia? I think it's better they just kind of rebrand them all together. I like what you're saying because I like that theme a lot. I think it was also the theme for St. Valentine's Day Massacre without the lyrics, I think, back in 1999. But yeah, Gallows used that on his own when he was a part of the Straight Edge Society a couple years ago. Like 5 years ago, not even a couple years ago at this point. But no, I think it's better just to repackage them all together. I would mark out if they came out to it tonight on Raw, don't get me wrong. But I think it's better they just kind of rebrand them all together and kind of get rid of all ties to Luke Gallows' previous persona. I understand I said it's better to call him Luke Gallows just because it'd be stupid to ignore his past persona, but at the same time, you can acknowledge his past personas, but also, you can acknowledge that he was here before as Luke Gallows, but you can also do as much as you can to kind of rebrand him. Like a la Curtis Axel, they acknowledged that he was Michael McGillicuddy, but they did all they could to rebrand him. Not successfully, but they tried. So kind of the same thing along those lines. They shouldn't give him the same music. It would be cool, but I see them getting new music tonight on Raw, or maybe no music at all. We'll see. Mark S. from Facebook, what do you think will be the outcomes of Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens and Charlotte versus Natalya with Bret Hart in her corner at Payback? For Owens Zayn, I would gonna go with Owens. I feel like Sami Zayn could win. I'd be happy to see him win. I think Kevin Owens is in need of a victory more than Sami Zayn just because I feel like Sami Zayn can lose and lose and lose and he's completely fine. You know what I mean? So I think KO wins here, maybe albeit via disqualification or via count out or something. I don't know, but I don't know. I'll go with Kevin Owens. I'm not really too sure. That can very well go either way, but I'll go with KO for that one. And for the women's championship match, probably Charlotte. I mean, no, Bret Hart's going to be in her corner for Natalya, but Ric Flair's going to be there too. It would be a cool moment for Natalya to win the title. I just don't feel like it's really necessary. I feel like the long-term money moment is in Banks or Lynch or probably Banks beating Charlotte for the belt at SummerSlam. So having Natalya win it in a match that no one really cares too much about. I think the match is going to be great, don't get me wrong, in ring-wise, but storyline-wise, I think Natalya's time has kind of come and gone, so there's really no reason for her to win here other than getting a cool moment and dropping it back to Charlotte. But if it was up to me, I'd keep the belt on Charlotte, and she is my pick to win. Mark's second question here. Do you think the tag team title should be defended at Payback? Yes. I don't know why they're not. I'm not really sure why they're not being defended. I know we're getting the finals of the tournament, which they could just do tonight on Raw, but I guess they're not doing that. I don't think they are defending the titles at Payback. I think we're just getting the tag team tournament finals. And then they might do League of Nations versus New Day again, which I don't want to see at all. We just saw it a million times over the past month, and New Day won pretty much every single fucking time. So why would I want to see it again? That being said, I mean, it would be cool if, we had the match the tag team title match that same night, but I don't know how likely that is. I don't think that's happening, but I don't think they are being defended at Payback, but I would rather see the titles defended at Payback. I would rather see the finals of the tournament tonight on Raw, and then see the tournament match, the title match, rather, at the pay-per-view, as opposed to the tournament finals, but that's just me. I think the Dudley Boys have been really good since turning heel. Do you think they are underrated as a tag team presently? I don't know if they're underrated. Underutilized might be the right word. I mean, they kind of tried the thing with the Usos that didn't really work out because they didn't really give them any storyline support. I mean, it was all about, like, oh, we're not using tables anymore, and they would use the tables anyway to elicit good heat, and that's good. But other than that, they never really did anything with that feud. I never really thought it kind of lived up to its full potential. The matches were all right. They weren't great. They weren't given really much time, but I think, well, right now anyway, I was going to say they're underutilized, but I think right now I think they're doing just fine because they're, placed in a program with Enzo and Cass, and that's been pretty good so far. So it's not like they're not on TV at all. I mean, maybe they were more underrated, underutilized back in late 2015 where they were kind of sort of on TV, but not really. And when they were losing. Beyond the Wyatt family feud, they didn't really do much with them for a couple months. So right now, I think they're better off where they are and kind of putting other tag teams over. Like, no, did they beat the Usos? No, yeah, the Usos won at WrestleMania, yeah. And they won the next night on Raw. But, yeah, I think right now they're they're utilizing them very well, just because they're putting over Enzo and Cass in their tag team feud. Saw your video review for the NXT Live event. How would you rate La Sombra, the Latino star, and how would you rate him compared to Alberto Del Rio, Sin Cara, and Kalisto? Could he be a big future star? Del Rio, I do not give two shits about. Never really did, don't anymore. I mean, I did 5-6 years ago. I had some hope when he came back, but then he fucking fucked that up. But, you know what I mean. I mean, he's really been very underwhelming since he came back. So he's better than Del Rio by far. Sin Cara is Sin Cara. That really kind of goes without saying that La Sombra has a lot more potential than he ever did. And then Kalisto, he is also very, very good. I would say they're on the same level. And a match between those guys would be fucking fantastic. But at the same time, I think Kalisto, he's been not very well booked. I mean, he was in NXT as part of the Lucha Dragons, but as a single star so far, he's a two-time U.S. champion. He's the current U.S. champion, but they really haven't done much with him. He's been losing matches. He's been losing tag team matches. Like, what's the point? And it kind of shows that the belt means nothing. And someone else asked the question about that, which I'll get to later. But, yeah, no, I would say La Sombra, he's great. I mean, I know RJ talked about in his article, up now on XRWrestling.net, and I talked about it in my review. I talked about it in the video review, like you said. He is really, really good. I had no idea who he was. Nobody knew who he was when he made his entrance. But after that match, he got a standing ovation from the audience. He got a sign of respect, a showing of respect from Austin Aries afterwards because it was a really, really good match. And Manny Andrade, I think is what his name is really, really good. I can't wait to see him on NXT TV pretty soon. What is your gut feeling about how big of a star Apollo Crews could be on the main roster? He can be a big star, but he can't be doing the same squash matches forever. It's going to get to a point, if it hasn't already, that they're going to get old. So hopefully they find direction for him pretty soon, and he's not squashing Heath Slater and Curtis Axel for the next 3 months. Otherwise, people are going to sour on him pretty quickly. But I think he can go far. He's got a good look. He's very good in the ring. He just needs more of a character. But beyond that, I think he is golden. I think he can be a big star in WWE if pushed properly. And his final question here, do you think Shane McMahon and the Authority will clash in the future, and Shane McMahon will fight Triple H? Do you think it's a good or bad idea or not needed? Do I think it's going to happen? Yes. I do think we will see Shane versus Triple H at SummerSlam. That's not been confirmed. That's just my own speculation. But is it a good or bad idea or not needed? I don't think it's needed, really. I mean, it would be cool for me personally to see Shane in action at SummerSlam just because I've never seen it before. I think it'd be pretty fucking cool to see Shane wrestle at SummerSlam, but that's selfishly speaking. Beyond that, I don't really think it's necessary to do another, fight for the power of the company storyline. It makes sense, I guess, from a storyline perspective, from a storyline standpoint, but I just do not care about the Authority anymore, and I do not fucking want them back on my TV. So I would rather just not see that at all. It's not a bad idea. I just don't really want to see the Authority brought back at all. They will be back at some point. I know that's kind of like, it's facing the inevitable, pretty much. It's not really worth complaining about because I know it's happening at some point. But I think with Shane anyway, that with Shane and Triple H, I think it's a match that will happen. They've been kind of teasing it in the last couple weeks with Shane running Raw. Does it need to happen? No, but if it will happen, it's not the worst thing they can possibly do. It's not like it's Shane versus Vince or something again, which we saw 15 years ago, and that's not really a match. I know we can expect a better match out of Shane and Triple H than we could Shane and Vince. I mean, that match at WrestleMania 17 was pretty fucking good, don't get me wrong, but in 2016, I don't know if it would be as good. Next question from @E13A. What is the biggest thing that happened this week? Probably China dying. I know Samoa Joe won the belt, and that was the highlight of the week for me, of course, but China passing away was the biggest news item in wrestling anyway. I know Prince died too. That's not the same day. China died on Wednesday, technically, and then Prince died on Thursday. But China dying was, huge. Very shocked to hear that. Very sad, too. Push, repackage, and release AJ Styles, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Austin Aries. The next two, I think Nakamura and Styles are interchangeable. I would release Styles. Just kidding. I would push Styles, repackage Nakamura. Again, I think it's very interchangeable because they're both perfect the way they are. There's really no tweaking about their characters. So I put push Styles and repackage Nakamura just because it could really go either way. It doesn't really matter. The only one that's set in stone is release Austin Aries, and I love Austin Aries. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he has much potential in WWE, and that's saying a lot. To get rid of Austin Aries is saying a lot. But when you're in the same company as Styles and Nakamura, there's really no room to breathe. There really is no competition. So I would release Aries, repackage Nakamura, and push Styles. @Swagzio, what is one underrated China moment? I can't really tell you just because I'm not an avid viewer of the Attitude Era. I didn't watch a lot of her work. I know I watched a bunch of her work in old pay-per-views and stuff. I think the Good Housekeeping match with Jeff Jarrett was actually pretty good. It was entertaining, so I'd probably go with that match. I know people look at it as like a disgrace, so she, a woman beat a man for the Intercontinental Championship. The whole thing with Jericho is dumb. The co-champions thing was stupid, I'll admit that. But the Good Housekeeping match, as dumb as it was, I thought it was entertaining. So I'll probably go with that, or her debut too. I think it's pretty underrated when she showed up in the crowd and fucking choked out Marlena. That was a pretty cool moment. I can't really speak beyond that because I'm not really hugely familiar with the Attitude Era or her career. But probably one of those two moments, her debut or winning the IC Championship in that Good Housekeeping match. Who is your least favorite Bullet Club member? I'm not huge in the Bullet Club, like I said earlier. I don't follow New Japan really at all, so I can't really say. I know there's Bad Luck Fale and Tommy Tonga or something like that. I don't really know. Cody Hall. Rocky Romero, I think, is a part of it. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really aware of the members of the Bullet Club from New Japan. If you're saying in WWE, Styles, Gallo, or Anderson, probably Carl Anderson because they like Luke Gallows and they like AJ Styles. So I guess Carl Anderson. But I don't think that's what you're asking. I think you're talking about the group currently in its current incarnation in New Japan. I can't really answer that just because I don't watch the show. I'm not really even sure who's in it at this point with everyone else gone. At the Wrestle Guy. His question was, do you think Joe winning the title was to add unpredictability or to protect Balor losing at a special as the Demon? That's a great question. That is a great point, too, that not many people have brought up in the last couple of days. I think it was to add unpredictability in that anything can happen at a live event. It also allowed Balor to break the record, which I'll talk about momentarily, too. Someone else asked about that. But, you make a great point that he lost to Joe as Finn Balor. And RJ pointed that out to me, too, after we left the show. But it's not really a point that's been brought up on social media or in reviews that I've read. Samoa Joe got beaten by the Demon twice at the specials. Balor, I think, is undefeated at the specials. I think he won at Our Revolution. He won at, what was the February one? He won at Rival. Did he win at Rival? Yeah, he beat Tyler Breeze. Unstoppable, or no, he beat Neville, I think. Yeah, he beat Neville. Unstoppable, he won. He beat Tyler Breeze. That was the special he beat Tyler Breeze at. Brooklyn, he won. Beast in the East, I know doesn't really count, but he won there too. What else? Respect, he won. London and Dallas. Yeah, he's pretty much undefeated at the TakeOver specials, which is pretty cool. And he lost the title at a non-special as just Finn Balor as the non-demon. So yeah, that's a great point. Hopefully they do face off. I don't really care at this point because we've already seen it 3 times. But, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully they play that up, that Balor lost as Finn Balor. He didn't lose as the Demon, so maybe he has a chance. Maybe people think there's an incentive there that he's going to win the belt back at the next special if they do a rematch, and he's the Demon and not just Finn Balor. Like, will he finally beat Samoa Joe back for the championship as the Demon? That's a great point, but I don't really think, they might have thought that through, I don't know, but I think the main reason was because they wanted to give the feeling that anything can happen at an NXT live event and kind of switch, kind of catch people off their guard and whatever. Get people on their toes in regards to anything can happen at any time. So buy your fucking tickets now, people. Not even for that, too. The show itself was amazing. So not only for the unpredictability, but the show, even before the title change, was great. So if you're not going to NXT in your area, I don't know what the hell's wrong with you, other than maybe just financial issues. But other than that, you have no reason not to go to NXT. Do you see Roman Reigns hiking the title until WrestleMania 33 since his last 2 runs were short, or will he drop it sooner? I know John asked about that at Reborn again a couple weeks ago. I don't think he will. I'm not saying it's not possible. I think they might run out of opponents for Roman. I mean, even right now, who is he going to face? Triple H maybe in a rematch at some point. AJ, Dean. If they turned him heel, maybe that's more of a possibility. But as a babyface, they're running out of opponents as it is. So I don't see him holding the championship for another year. I don't think it's going to happen. Again, it's not to say that it won't happen. I just don't think it will. And his third question here. When Wyatt comes back from injury, how far do you think he can go as a babyface? Will he get the true push that he has deserved? I think he can go far. I talked about that a week or 2 ago. He's got a lot of potential as a babyface, and that was before the hot tag that night on Raw, which was amazing. I got goosebumps because the guy was on fire in that tag team match with Roman Reigns against League of Nations. So he can go far. I hate to see that this injury has kind of halted his momentum a little bit. But I think he can go far as a babyface, even farther than he did as a heel, just because they kind of pulled the rug from underneath him as a heel because they never really fleshed out the character or never really gave him any consistent winning streak for the most part. But he has a lot of potential as a babyface. At Sean Markistic, when do you see the Authority returning? I mean, there's been rumors that it could be tonight. I really hope not, but I assume it will be sooner rather than later to kind of start up something for SummerSlam. I feel like we might get something similar to 2013 when the Authority came back, or when the Authority really kind of first started. They came back at the Raw that I was at June 3rd, 2013 in Hartford, when Stephanie and Vince came back for the first time in many months, and that kind of kicked off the whole Authority storyline, and they were in charge of Raw for a couple months. I could see Shane and Triple H sharing control of Raw for a few months before battling it out in a match at SummerSlam. So I would assume sooner rather than later. It could be tonight. I hope not, but I assume it could be very well next week too. So we'll see. What is the greatest B-level pay-per-view of the PG era? Probably it has to be Money in the Bank 2011. I don't know if you're talking about just in general, like Extreme Rules. No specific year, but just like the pay-per-view Extreme Rules. But if you're talking about 1 year, it has to be Money in the Bank 2011. I don't really think there's much of a debate about that. Extreme Rules 2012 was also amazing too. Some people even say better than WrestleMania 28. I don't know if I would go that far, but it really was. That was a great show too. But I would have to go Money in the Bank 2011. I know I'm biased because it's my favorite pay-per-view of all time. But it's got to be that pay-per-view. It really felt like there was a sense of change coming into that show. I mean, CM Punk, of course, winning the WWE Championship, Daniel Bryan and Alberto Del Rio as Mr. Money in the Banks, Christian as the new World Heavyweight Champion. It really felt like there was a sense of change in the air coming out of that show, so it has to be Money in the Bank 2011. Who will Randy Orton feud with once he returns? There's not really one answer. I mean, I know he was attacked by the Wyatt family, and right before he got injured last, and back in November or October, I think it was. That's going back a while. So unless they pair him with Dean Ambrose, because I know he was kind of in a partnership with him at the time, unless they say like Dean Ambrose attacked him, which would be a good feud. Maybe Orton goes heel. I hope not, because he's already flip-flopped like 3 times in the last couple of years. So I hope not. But Dean, I guess, would make sense. The Wyatt family's out right now anyway, so I don't know how much sense that would make. If he's back in time, him versus Brock Lesnar for SummerSlam would be awesome, because we've never seen him before. I feel like the match could be really, really good. I don't know how you get to that point. I don't know how it makes sense in storyline. I don't know if he spills his coffee over, on Lesnar backstage or something. I have no idea how you get to that point, what the reason is for that match happening, but I feel like the match itself could be really, really good. And his other question here, his last question here, who does The Miz lose the Intercontinental Championship to? Probably Cesaro. I know probably maybe not as soon as this Sunday. It wouldn't surprise me. But Miz's title runs usually do not last long. I think pretty much all of his reigns as IC champion have been like a month or less. Other than the first one, he held it for maybe 2 or 3 months. But the second one lasted like a day. He won at WrestleMania 29. He lost it the next night on Raw. The third one he won at Battleground 2014, and then he lost it the next month at SummerSlam. He won his 4th one at Night of Champions, and he lost it the next night to Dolph Ziggler. So, yeah, they don't really last too long, so I wouldn't be shocked if Cesaro won on Sunday. If not on Sunday, then probably at Payback, or Extreme Rules, or rather, next month. I feel like the end game, regardless of when it is, regardless of when it's, whether it's this Sunday or the the Extreme Rules pay-per-view or whenever, that the end game is Cesaro becoming the Intercontinental Champion, which I think is the right move because he does deserve it and he can do a lot with that championship. Miz is very entertaining, but I think Cesaro will be even better as IC champion just because he's more over and he deserves, some sort of reward for getting himself over in the past year. At Cody Collier 37, besides a Finn Balor rematch, who do you think will feud with the new NXT champion Samoa Joe and why? Austin Aries is always a possibility. You have Bobby Roode waiting in the wings too. Shinsuke Nakamura is obviously the strongest candidate to go after the NXT championship at some point. So probably, Shinsuke, I think that match, you could hold off on that. Hopefully they don't rush into it so soon. It wouldn't shock me, but because they've done that before. Maybe Shinsuke gets a shot and then he loses and he goes up to the main roster. Who knows? But, a Shinsuke Nakamura versus Samoa Joe match would be kick-ass, and hopefully it's not too long before we see it. Not too soon, but hopefully not too long either. And his second question here, who would you like to see Roman Reigns feud with after Payback and why? Again, there's not really many obvious opponents, unless it's a rematch with Styles, which I would not be opposed to. Dean Ambrose would be pretty cool. Jericho, I feel like, is on his way out, so probably not Ambrose. Ambrose can win at Payback and then earn himself a title shot at the following pay-per-view against Roman Reigns. We kind of saw that match at Survivor Series, not under the best circumstances, and it wasn't a great match. Hopefully this time would be better. But you have the story there. Dean Ambrose wants the championship. His best friend is in possession of that prize, and he wants the belt, but he has to beat his best friend for it. It's a good story. It makes sense. So, yeah, probably Dean Ambrose. No one else really comes to mind. John Cena, but down the line. Bray Wyatt, maybe. Unless Roman Reigns is a heel, I don't know if I want to see that right now anyway. But, maybe Dean Ambrose, I guess, would make the most sense. Other than that, there's no real obvious opponent unless they go back to Triple H and Roman Reigns, which I do not want to see at all. But fingers crossed that's not in the cards. At Vincent Elisar, early Money in the Bank prediction, I personally think Kevin Owens. I said it last week, but yeah, Kevin Owens. I feel like he is the most likely and popular candidate to win this year's Money in the Bank ladder match. So probably KO or Dean Ambrose is a possibility too, but he has never, he's gotten a shot at the World Championship before without having to win the Money in the Bank briefcase, and so did Dolph Ziggler. That's another story for another day, but KO I feel like is the best candidate right now. I definitely think the same thing. Does Finn Balor debut as a face or as a heel? I'm leaning towards a heel because I think the end game is him joining up with the Gallows and Anderson. It really doesn't matter because he's going to be over as a babyface anyway, but I feel like the story is with him debuting as a heel and feuding with AJ Styles. Maybe people don't even want to even boo him because he's such a great wrestler, a great character, and he screams babyface. But I feel like storyline-wise, the best option would be to debut him as a heel just because you have that ready-made feud with AJ Styles. And again, I apologize. I got to rush to the next couple questions or the remainder of the questions because I got to go in a couple minutes. But at Reborn again, do you feel Balor losing the NXT title at a house show, which you were at, right? Yes, I was, sir. Great show. Was a good or bad move for the brand? A good move, I would say. Not just because I was there, but Balor was able to break the record. It adds unpredictability to the house shows, like I said before. And it switches up, if they didn't do it at TakeOver, and I just think it's great all around. I think it's a great, unpredictable move. They'll probably show footage. They will show footage, I imagine, on NXT this upcoming week. But I thought it was good. I loved it. I thought it was a great move for the brand because it really gives those NXT live events the feeling that anything can happen. And I'm never going to miss an NXT live event for the rest of my life after going to that one. Is the recent booking of Kalisto for the past 2 to 3 months as U.S. champion more evidence that Vince does not care about the title? Yeah, I would say so. I feel like Kalisto is not a huge priority right now for them. He should be, but he's not. But I just don't think Vince gives a shit about the U.S. title. I don't really think it has anything to do with the fact that it is a WCW creation. I don't know if I would go that far. But I think for the championship itself, it really has not been as focused on. It really kind of goes without saying, but it has not been focused on as much since John Cena lost it back at Hell in a Cell. So unless John Cena is holding it, it's not a priority to them, which sucks. It should be, but it's not, unfortunately. Do you think all these indie star signings by WWE will lead to lower card guys leaving for Lucha Underground, Ring of Honor, or New Japan Pro Wrestling? Yeah, it's a possibility. I heard Jack Swagger might be leaving sooner rather than later. He posted something cryptic on Twitter over the weekend that indicated he might be leaving. I don't think he's going to any of the companies that you just mentioned. I don't think that's happening just because his time's kind of up, and I don't really care to see him in any of those companies. I feel like he just might move on to something else outside of wrestling. But, with so many indie guys coming in, you got to think like the lower undercard guys like Dolph Ziggler, he's like a jobber at this point, really, and as he should be. There's really nothing for him to do in the mid-card, so I would rather see him in Ring of Honor or Lucha. That's not happening right now because he signed a contract until like next year, so that's not happening, but yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, that's happened before. I mean, you look at the current landscape of Lucha. A lot of those guys were from WWE Developmental or NXT or whatever. So if they feel like they're not getting a fair shake, I could see Zack Ryder. I mean, he's gotten more of a push recently, of course. But beyond that, I could see him in Lucha Underground, and that would be a great fit for him. So I don't know. I think it's definitely a possibility. At RJ_Marceau, besides the Revival, what tag teams are there to challenge American Alpha? No immediate names come to mind other than Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. That would be a great fucking match. You don't need me to tell you that. I think we've actually seen that match before. I think we've seen American Alpha versus those guys last year. I don't know when it was. I feel like we've seen that match before and it was really, really good. But Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano have officially signed apparently with WWE, so they are free to go after championships now, apparently. And that would be a match, maybe not at the next special, but beyond that, maybe at the Brooklyn special. That would be a great match. I would love to see those two teams, fighting and battling it out for the tag team titles. His second question, your thoughts on Manny Andrade? I know RJ loves this guy. He talked about it in his recent article, like I said, as a plug before, from nextairwrestling.net. I'm a big fan of his, too. I think he's really, really, really good. I think the former La Sombra can go far in NXT if booked properly. He's got a great skill set. He's got a good look. So hopefully they don't fuck him up like they did Kalisto on the main roster. I mean, Kalisto, it's not past the point of no return. So I think he's fine, but they really have not utilized him too well the last month or so. But Manny Andrade, the former La Sombra, has a lot of potential. I'm looking forward to seeing how he's utilized on NXT TV in the near future, hopefully. At Brad Brodar, when he was a member of the Nexus and the Core, do you ever think that Heath Slater could have had a good career ahead of him? No, not really. I mean, even when he beat Jericho in NXT the first season back in 2010, I always thought, this guy's like a glorified jobber. Why did they beat Jericho? It was more of a shock factor than anything else, but not really. Even when he was in NXT, when he was in the Nexus, in the Core, I always looked at Heath Slater as like an entertaining guy, but very limited in terms of where he can go. Maybe IC title level at best. But beyond that, he's like the perennial jobber. He's like this generation's Barry Horowitz, just 10 times more entertaining. His next question, I like Goldust and I love R-Truth, but had their skits carried on for far too long. Yes. Yes. I don't know what purpose they're even serving at this point. I thought the stuff on SmackDown was awful. It sucked. So, yeah, they've been doing this for like 2 to 3 months now, and it really hasn't led anywhere. Like, just get to the point, people. I like the long-term storytelling in some cases, but with two people I don't give two shits about right now, I don't care. It's just a waste of time. If they put the same effort into other people on the roster, the same TV time they give to these two guys, then I feel like the roster would be in a better place, because these guys get TV every single episode of Raw and SmackDown. They get so much TV time, it's ridiculous, and it has led nowhere. It's led nowhere. So, yes, I feel like that's a clown question. They have absolutely carried on for far too long. His next question, Natalya was once considered the best wrestler in the women's division by miles. Where does she rank at wrestling today? She's still up there, but I would say Sasha's better than her. I just feel like it's hard to include just in-ring persona, like in-ring skills, without considering like character and stuff like that. Even Charlotte, I feel like Natalya's a better worker than her, but even Charlotte has a better character. What is Natalya's character at this point? We like her because she's a great wrestler and we feel she's underrated, but beyond that, what's the motivation to cheer for? Oh, my uncle's Bret Hart, cool. But beyond that, why should I cheer for Natalya? But anyway, I feel like she's still up there. She's still really, really good. But I feel like she's not as good as Sasha or Becky or Charlotte because they have the complete package. In terms of character, Natalya's got a great look too, don't get me wrong. She's not she's a sight for sore eyes too, but she doesn't really have a character at this point. She's just been here for 10 years, so they expect us to like her. That's really it. We don't really hear from her too much. She doesn't get much mic time. But, I would say she's still at the top of the list, but I don't really care about her as much as I do Banks and Becky and Charlotte and other women on the roster. Last 3 questions from at Scarlet1. Got to rush through these, but do you think that Goldust's career in WWE carries a bad legacy more than a good one? No, just because he's been involved in more shit, I still think you can look at that and say, he's really made the most of what he's been given. Even the R-Truth stuff, I've laughed at a few of the skits. More often than not, no, but he's tried to make the most of it, despite how bad it's been at points. But even the stuff with Booker T was great. Even early on in his career in WWE, he did that was the best work of his career, other than the stuff with Cody Rhodes a few years ago, was when he first came on the scene. He was feuding with Savio Vega and Razor Ramon. So, yeah, absolutely, I would say that his career carries more of a better legacy than a negative one. Not really the other way around, as you said. Their second question, I didn't love the SmackDown Sami Zayn, Dean Ambrose versus Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho main event match as much as I wanted to, but still, could we get a Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho as a tag team for a while? Even if it lasts as long as Y2AJ, I'd be fine with that. I hope so. These guys are really entertaining. The best part about that pairing was after Owens and Jericho won. They ran up the stage, and Owens ran into Jericho's arms, and he said, "I won! I did this for our team." And Jericho's like, "Yeah, we won." He's like, and then Kevin Owens responded something along the lines of, "Yeah, you helped, Chris, but it was pretty much all me. I won the match," and it was so great. So, yeah, it doesn't need to be an official tag team, but if they have this, soft alliance that we've been seeing in recent weeks, I would love to see more of that because these guys are really entertaining together. Unsurprisingly, but very unsurprisingly, because these guys are both great, but very, very entertaining these guys are together. Is there one question that you're tired of being asked? And then we'll end on this note. I get a lot of cruiserweight questions, and I'm not really tired of those just because the cruiserweight, division, the global cruiserweight show is coming up, so I'm not really tired of that, and I can see why people are asking about it. When is the Cruiserweight Championship coming back? I'm not really tired of that. It's probably the most popular question I've ever gotten. But any question I'm tired of getting, the only one that comes to mind, I know RJ knows this, what's next for the Wyatt family? Right now it's not really as relevant because one, they're gone, and two, they finally have direction. But for the past 2 years even, I think we've been getting this question pretty much every single episode. Where does Bray Wyatt go from here? What's next for them? Because they never really have any storyline set in place, and they always fucking lose. They always lose. So why should I care what's next for the guys? You know what I mean? I just don't care anymore. I like them as baby faces, and that makes me care. But as heels, I just didn't care anymore. And people would still ask me, what's next for the Wyatt family? I have no idea. Ask WWE, and they're probably not going to give you a proper answer either, because they don't know what's next for the Wyatt family. How would I know what's next for the Wyatt family? It doesn't annoy me, but it's just funny whenever I get asked that. It's like kind of a running gag at this point. But anyway, I got to get going, guys. So if you want to send in a question, tweet me on Twitter at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Sunday nights or on the wall itself. Or be sure to include your question in the comment section down below. Be sure to answer your question in next week's edition. So until next time, guys, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support is amazingly appreciated. Enjoy Payback on Sunday. Next week's episode will be covering the fallout from the show. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Have an amazing week, and I will catch you guys down the road.